Hello there guys, you're listening to Ebird Online and I'm back with another review. And today we're going to be talking about Andrew and Amira from 90 Day Fiancé. And guys, this week's storyline had me agog. I know I said last week Andrew's a straight up clown, but wow, somehow, just somehow, he's got even worse. And guys, I've really got to say, Andrew's not the guy for Amira, he's not the guy for anyone. Andrew's what you get if you tried to purchase Colt in Poundland. So just before I begin, I'd like to say if you're new here, welcome. Please consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss any of our 90 Day Fiancé content. And if you've already subscribed, thank you so much for the support. I genuinely appreciate it. And please, if you enjoy the video, don't forget to hit the like button because it does make a difference to my channel. So without further ado, I give you Andrew and Amira. So guys, I have to apologise, lots of you guys got me together last week because I was actually laughing last week at Andrew's storyline and his torment. And I do understand that even though we were sort of laughing and joking along with it, it's very, very serious. And obviously when we first see Andrew this week, he explains to us that he's been going through hell, he's had an awful time. It's been quite simply horrendous for him. All he can think about is Amira, he's called everybody that he can call, he's exhausted all his options. He can't think straight, he can't concentrate, he can't sleep, he can't eat. Oh, it seems like he can eat. Andrew, you greedy git. Yes guys, when we first see Andrew, he's sitting in a very empty restaurant, scoffing a double cheeseburger and chips. And it would seem that the incarceration of his fiancée hasn't managed to dull his appetite in any meaningful way. Guys, I don't know why I'm surprised. And I'm watching him in the restaurant, eating away, looking at his phone. I can't help but think, 1, you greedy glutton. And 2, Andrew, looking at the phone won't help. You have to either search Google on it or make calls on it and actually try to speak to somebody. Staring at the phone won't find Amira. And this restaurant tells me everything I need to know about the state of the Mexican tourist industry during COVID. It's very unsurprising that Amira hasn't managed to make it to the hotel because it seems like nobody else has. Since Andrew's been at this hotel, I haven't seen one other holiday maker, one other member of staff. I haven't seen anyone bar Andrew. Andrew, does that not ring alarm bells to you? And Andrew finishes his meal. It wouldn't surprise me if he's eating Amira's food as well. Waste not, want not. Andrew takes a leisurely moat back to his hotel room and is trying to make us feel sorry for him by wearing his Prozac look. And he tells us he feels powerless. He's exhausted all his resources. Oh Andrew, you've done that in the first couple of seconds. And he tells us all he wants to do is be reunited with Amira. And he lets us in on his innermost fears. The most difficult thing is the uncertainty of the future. Andrew, really? That's the most difficult thing? What do you think Amira's most difficult thing is? I think that might be being in jail, loss of liberty, loss of dignity. Oh good lord, all Andrew's thinking about, as per usual, is himself. Andrew, don't be uncertain about the future. The Ebird can give you clarity. Amira doesn't want to know you because you're a loser and because you pressurised her into your harebrained scheme to go to Mexico in the middle of a pandemic. She no longer wants to date you because she's realised that the fees that you paid for the K1 visa are far more important to you than Amira's well-being and safety. That was a public service announcement from the Ebird, and I hope, Andrew, that sorts out all of your uncertainty about the future. So Andrew goes back to his room to be ineffective once more. But there is one thing that Andrew's good at. He's great at multitasking. He can waste time, be unproductive and procrastinate all at once. So 4 or 5 hours later, Andrew's sitting on the same sofa in his drab hotel room and he sees that Amira's online. Guys, thank God for that, she's been found. Can I get an amen? Oh no, can I get a man? Not around here I can't, it's just Andrew. So he immediately messages her and says, are you okay, what's happening? And guys, I gotta tell you, it was interesting to me the fact that she's online, so she's speaking to somebody, but she hasn't bothered to message or text you. You've just noticed she's online. That, Andrew, should give you a clue as to the status of your relationship. And I know that she still has a picture of Andrew on her profile. I guess she hasn't had a chance to change it yet. Amira lets Andrew know she's in Amsterdam and she's on her way back home to France. So Andrew tells us he's really sad that she's heading back to France, but he's pleased that she's okay. So it's bittersweet. How is it bittersweet? You should just be happy that she's no longer incarcerated. You should be happy that she's no longer scared witless. You should be happy that you've managed to deliver her safe and sound back to her dad. You should be happy for all of those things, Andrew. And then Amira tells us that the moment she got off the plane, she got stopped. She didn't make it. She didn't manage to get to the hotel. She didn't even manage to exit the airport. And then she was detained for 36 hours. And then Andrew tells us that Amira's traumatised and it's really difficult for her to talk about it. It's difficult for her to talk about it to you, Andrew. She doesn't care about you anymore. And she knows that you're the self-congratulatory dimwit that put her in harm's way. But I guarantee you she'll be able to talk to producers about it and her 90-Day Fiancé fans. And then finally, Andrew comes up with the same gem he said last week. There's a possibility that Amira might hold me responsible. Oh God. Andrew, there's a probability she will. And the reason that she will is because you indeed are responsible. And guys, this really does get my goat. I don't understand why Andrew just doesn't accept responsibility and say, yeah, I did pressurise her. Yeah, I did come up with this harebrained scheme. I really wish I hadn't now. Amira, how can I make it right? Instead, he's just wondering, I wonder if we can see each other in the next 40 days so I don't lose my money and continue our lives together. When can I get my hands on Amira? You're still looking at everything from your own point of view, Andrew. You're ultimately extremely self-centered. And then next up, we see Amira. And it looks like she's finally got home and she's in her bathroom. And thankfully, she's found the time to apply makeup through her tears. But it seems that nobody's told her that makeup should be applied daily and not all at once. Yet again, she's wearing 3 weeks worth and she's just setting up her phone so she can speak to production. And while she's setting up the phone, she says, yeah, she's spoken to Andrew very briefly to let him know that she's okay, but she's managed to get off the plane and get on the train and go all the way back home. And all this time, Andrew hasn't bothered to message her again. He didn't message to see if she landed or anything. He hasn't even messaged to see if she blames him. She does. And then the producer asked, what happened? And she said, I never wanted to go to Mexico in the first place. Andrew pressurised me to go. He said if I didn't go, he would resent me forever. And the producer asked, so where were you held? Was it a cell or was it just a room? And she said she was held in a cell. And she said there was a toilet but there was no toilet roll. She didn't have a shower for 3 days and all the tables and chairs were affixed to the floor. There was a bed there but the whole thing was freezing cold. And she said the whole time that she was held, she wasn't told anything. And not that I have any knowledge of this kind of thing at all, but I'm genuinely really shocked that she was actually held at a detention centre. I would have thought I imagine they'd just let her stay at the airport and put her on the next flight back to France. And I know online somebody's managed to get hold of her paperwork which shows why she wasn't let into the country. And according to the paperwork, it said she had no passport. Now, of course, she must have had a passport because you cannot leave France and fly to Mexico without one. I mean, I guess it's just possible that she didn't have 6 months remaining on her passport, so maybe she wasn't let in on that point. But I think it's just more likely they thought, there's a worldwide pandemic, you're not coming in. France has got a really high rate for COVID. We don't want you here. I think that's much, much more likely. And we'll talk about this a little more at the end of the video. But TLC let me down because they really didn't ask her a lot of questions. There's a lot more that I would like to know about this whole issue. But you can see she's massively traumatised. She absolutely breaks down as she's in the middle of talking to the producer. And she said, I genuinely felt like I was in jail. It was like being in a movie, but it was unfortunately real. And then she goes on to say that she was made to feel like she was absolutely nothing. She had no dignity. And she said, I just wasn't told anything. And that must have been awful, not knowing, am I going to be here 2 hours, 10 hours, 72 hours? How long am I going to be here? The open-endedness of any sentence, in my mind, is virtually a breach of anyone's human rights. It's awful, just not knowing what's going to happen. Even murderers and criminals are told how long their sentence is and when they can apply for parole. Imagine knowing absolutely nothing. It doesn't bear thinking about. And she finishes up by saying she just wants to heal and she wants to move on. Away from Andrew, who knows? And then she says, I hope that Andrew understands that, but I have my doubts. No, of course he won't understand that. He'll be looking for another way for you to scramble your way to the US in the next 40 days so he doesn't lose out on his visa money. And she said, we had absolutely no dignity whatsoever. They just wanted us to feel like we were nothing. That's really awful. Just wow. And that's where we leave the story for this week. So my takeaways are this. 1. Andrew's still worrying about himself and worrying about when he'll next be able to see his love, Amira. He's not concerned with the fact that she's traumatised and she's been through something awful. Secondly, Andrew's now seeking to distance himself from this whole scenario. And we remember he said last week, I hope her dad doesn't blame me. And now he's saying, there's a chance that she'll hold me responsible. And Andrew very conveniently is trying to rewrite history. 2 or 3 weeks ago, you were bragging, guess what? I found a loophole. I'm very good at finding information and I've managed to discover a way that we can be together. And suddenly when it all goes wrong, none of it's your idea. And he even points out that Amira bought her own ticket. And do we think Amira's culpable? She is a little bit, because I guess she shouldn't have gone along with it. But I have to say 2 things. 1, she was still allowed to buy a ticket and fly to Mexico from France. So you would imagine if flights were forbidden, she wouldn't have even been allowed to purchase a flight in the first instance. And then secondly, if Andrew's saying, I've researched this and I've been on websites from America and I know other couples that they've managed to get into the country this way, I guess she would have thought, well, he must have looked into it quite thoroughly. He's fairly sure. But Andrew still had to apply a little bit of pressure to her, saying, if you really love me, you'll do it. And I do everything for you, and it seems like you won't do anything for me. And so maybe she was a little bit silly going, but I don't think there was any reason for her to think it could have turned out as badly as it did turn out in the end. And this week on social media, Andrew was getting a lot of flack for what he's put Amira through from fans, and Andrew said she bought her own ticket and she was down with the plan. And it got me thinking, she bought her own ticket? Interesting. So if she bought her own ticket, did she buy a return? Because maybe the Mexicans were thinking, what the hell is this girl doing? She's bought a single to Mexico. What are her plans? And so maybe that could have been part of the issue if she didn't have a return to go back to France. And I don't know if there's anything in her passport to say, I've got a K1 to get into America. If there wasn't, then maybe that would be another potential problem. And I wish that TLC had asked some of these questions, and I also wish they'd asked who else was taken from her flight. Did she see anyone else get taken? Because obviously everybody came from France, so was everybody not allowed in, or was it just her? And I couldn't help thinking one other final thing which might well be pertinent. Amira's half Egyptian and half French, but her name is entirely Arabic. It could have been that they just literally looked at this and thought, maybe you've emigrated from Egypt to France, you've got a French passport, and now you're trying to get into America sneakily via Mexico. So maybe they thought she was a bona fide illegal immigrant, as in she was just trying to sneak in across the border. I really don't know, but I find it very strange that she was allowed to purchase a ticket, yet she was stopped as soon as she got to Mexico. And it's also equally as strange that they put no passport on her papers when that clearly wasn't the case. So guys, it's time for you to weigh in. What do you think? Do you think that Andrew only ever sees things from his own point of view? Or do you feel sorry for him and that he couldn't be expected to know? And what do you think to the fact that Andrew didn't even stay up long enough to find out if she'd safely arrived in France? And what do you think the reason for Amira being sent back was? And when you're putting this, bear in mind the fact that she was allowed to buy a ticket, and presumably some people from that flight were allowed to enter into Mexico. Like I say, I do wish we knew how many people were on the flight. As we saw in the hotel, it was absolutely dead in Mexico. So there's not that many tourists there. There are not that many people there. So that's a big clue that maybe they're sending lots and lots of people back home. And then finally, the $64,000 question. Is this the end for Andrew and Amira? Will she pull the plug on this relationship? And as we know, she said she wanted children in the first instance, and then later on she said she wasn't sure about having kids. I think that was an early indicator that she wasn't 100% sure about Andrew anyway. I just have a feeling that Andrew is a secret control freak and he paints himself as a good guy. I do think he's rather like Colt. I know we haven't seen them together, but I just don't see how these two extremely different personalities would even get on. I say this to Amira, what's that sound? Yep, that's you scraping the bottom of the barrel. Get out now while you can. So yeah, let me know what you think in comments down below, and I'll be back very soon with another video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and all of that good stuff. It's a great time over here. Make Ebird a very happy Ebird and press that red button. Thank you guys so much for listening. You've been listening to Ebird Online, and I bid you good day.